Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Eerie News. Today is March 22nd, 2022, 3/22/2022, and we have a few interesting stories. And let's get right down to it. It's like always. Some of these things, some of these stories fall through the cracks when if you were looking at the regular media. So that's why I bring them up. Let's go to the first one. This one is out of Arcamax, and it's titled "Family Says Dive Team Found Missing Pennsylvania Man's Remains in Creek After 18 Years." Stephen Amabile stood by a dock along Darby Creek on Saturday morning, keeping optimism in check as he waited for an independent dive team to surface from the murky water. Amabile, 63, had heard lots of theories since his brother James disappeared December 4th, 2003, but discounted most of them for wonders. On the day he disappeared, James, 38 at the time, called the babysitter to tell her he was running late. He never arrived and was never seen again. So when Amabiles saw the diver's hand emerge from the water, holding the blue and white Pennsylvania license plate FLA 4785, they'd pried off the Ford Explorer. He believed the closure he wasn't expecting was placed gently in his hands. "It's my brother," Amabile told the Inquirer hours later. They found him. Ridley Township Police Captain James Doherty confirmed late Saturday night that human remains were found in the vehicle. He said the plate number matched a missing persons entry from December of 2003. He said police were not releasing the person's name and that the Delaware County Medical Examiner's Office was examining the remains for positive identification. And I did want to go ahead and interject here quickly that when this was a few years back, I want to say it was in the 1990s, I worked with a young lady who this is exactly what happened to her. She had a brother who had disappeared, like I want to say he was like 19 or 20, from one moment to the next. And in South Florida especially, they have a lot of the canals, and they found him a few years later. As a matter of fact, I want to say he was like a little bit significantly older. She was like a kid, really, when he disappeared. And after X amount of years, I can't remember if they were dragging the canal for stolen vehicles. In other words, not really looking for him, but they came across him just the same. And I remember for her family, as terrible as it was, the knowing also at the same time, like it was very similar to this. They knew that this person would just not have disappeared and gone off and not contacted the family. So I've seen up close that, as heartbreaking as it is to have confirmation at the same time, it also offers some type of comfort on some level. But let's get back to the story. It says here uh, that the Ridley Township Police Captain James Doherty confirmed late Saturday night that human remains were found in the vehicle. He said the plate number matched a missing person entry from December of 2003. He said police were not releasing the person's name and that the Delaware County Medical Examiner's Office was examining the remains for positive identification. Amabile said that the divers told him human remains were in the driver's seat, still buckled in and with a seatbelt. For Amabile, the location of the Ford Explorer in Darby Creek, just blocks from that babysitter's home, confirms his theory. He believes his brother, who was diabetic, had a hectic day, slipped into a diabetic shock, and drove straight into the creek after making a wrong turn. He dove right into the water, Amabile said. Adventures with a Purpose, the dive team that found the vehicle and remains, has a reputation for breaking missing persons cases involving bodies of water. According to the group's website, it has recovered over 100 vehicles and helped solve 19 missing persons cases since 2019. Amabile said a family member reached out to the group and a representative told them they'd come out Saturday. They asked if a family member could be there. "Honestly, I wasn't expecting anything. I've gotten used to not expecting anything, and I tune a lot of things out," Amabile said. But it didn't take them very long to figure out there was an SUV down there. Amabile said The family didn't pay the dive team. Let's see. They didn't ask for anything, he said. Diver Anthony Giampetro confirmed that human remains were found in the SUV, but he said Saturday night it wasn't certain that they were those of James Amabile since the driver's identity had not yet been ascertained. At this particular moment, we're just happy that we provided closure, Giampetro said. Amabile said family members converged on the scene as news of the diving operation spread. James' daughters were overcome with emotion, their uncle said. No matter what anyone ever says, you are not at peace until you get more answers, Amabile said. According to Inquirer accounts at the time of the disappearance, James Amabile wore an implanted insulin pump and could become confused and lose sense of where he was due to low blood sugar. A Cardinal O'Hara graduate, he worked at the United Parcel Service Center on Oregon Avenue in South Philadelphia. In the aftermath of his disappearance, police helicopters searched the wetlands of the John Hines National Wildlife Refuge at Tinicum. Stephen Amabile and his now-deceased brother, Michael, also walked the creeks in the area. He said Mary Amabile, their mother, died less than a year after her son disappeared. Amabile said it was too soon to say what type of services might be held for James. Yes. So, unfortunately, things like that do happen. And, but again, I'm glad that they found him. Let's go on to, this is another really interesting story out of Gizmodo. And it's titled 2,500-Year-Old Sacred Pool Uncovered on Sicilian Island. What was thought to be a military port is actually something much more intriguing, new research suggests. Excavations at the former island city of Motya have revealed a large sacred pool that the ancient Phoenicians used for religious purposes and to track the movements of stars, according to research. New research in the science journal Antiquity presents a novel interpretation of an artificial basin known as a kothon, on the former island city of Motya in western Sicily. The authors of the new paper, led by archaeologist Lorenzo Negro from Sapienza University of Rome, says the structure is not a military harbor, as initially believed, but a sacred pool at the center of a monumental sanctuary with possible astronomical functions. The discovery is shedding new light on ancient Phoenician culture and their connection to nature. The kothon, a term used by Greek and Latin authors, was originally uncovered in the early 1920s, and it dates to between 550 to 397 BC. Archaeologists figured it was an artificial harbor, and for good reason. A similar structure existed in Carthage, and it served the function of a military port. The new study challenges this long-standing interpretation, arguing that the 2,500-year-old structure is a sacred pool, making it among the largest to be found in the Mediterranean region. Renewed excavations at the site between 2002 and 2010 resulted in the discovery of a large building, the Temple of Baal. The temple honoring the Phoenician deity was found along the edge of the presumed kothon. It was an odd discovery, as it's not the kind of building that one might expect to find at a military harbor. This led to a decade-long effort to further investigate the structure, in which the team had to drain and excavate the basin, which measures 172 feet long and 119 feet wide. That's bigger than an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The team excavated stratigraphically, layer by layer, in order to reconstruct its complex history, and as it is unexpectedly connected with the phreatic aquifer, the Greek term for natural spring. We had to pump water outside continuously, Negro explained in an email. Indeed, as the excavations revealed, the supposed kothon was not connected to the sea and was instead fed by natural springs, so it could not have served as an inlet to a hypothetical navigable basin, according to the study. Importantly, the archaeologists also discovered an additional temple around the perimeter of the pool, a structure dedicated to the Phoenician goddess Astarte, and a third building labeled Sanctuary of the Holy Waters. Burial stones, altars, religious offerings, and a pedestal at the center of the pool were also uncovered. The pedestal still retained the feet of a tall statue that once stood up top, a statue that scientists believe represented Baal. Taken together, this evidence suggests the pool was a striking centerpiece to a substantial religious sanctuary. But that's not all. A map of the pool suggests it was aligned to the stars and used to track celestial movements. As the researchers write, quote, the reflecting surface of pools could be used for astronomical observations by using poles to mark the positions of stars reflected in the water, allowing the observation and measurement of celestial bodies and their angles relative to the horizon. The constellations and their positions in the night sky on significant dates such as solstices and equinoxes are mirrored in the alignments of the main structure at the site, as well as through sacred features that include stelae, carefully placed within the temenos to mark the rising zenith or setting of the stars over the horizon. Negro said this particular finding excited him the most. The fact that ancient Phoenicians aimed to synchronize their life with that of the cosmos/nature. He told me, and that their gods were stars and nature was a constantly inspiring force in their lives. The redefining of the Chthon and the characterizations of the religious complex further refines our understanding of the ancient Phoenicians, a civilization that lasted from around 2500 BC to 64 BC when Pompey conquered Phoenicia. Negro said the new findings show us that the Phoenicians could gather different Mediterranean cultures in their city using this cult complex as a place to mix and exchange their traditions. This openness, however, came at a cost, as it served to alienate Carthage, resulting in the siege of Moya in 398-397 BC, according to the paper. Upon completion of the excavation, Negro's team refilled the basin and mounted a replica statue of Baal to the pedestal. It actually looks very cool, providing a glimpse of what this sacred place looked like so many years ago. Now, this is all very interesting, but I said Baal. I need to find out. I know I've heard his name before, which I have. And according to New World Encyclopedia, okay, in the Bible, Baal, also rendered as Baal with the apostrophe between the two A's, was an important Canaanite god often portrayed as the primary enemy of the Hebrew god Yahweh. The Semitic word Baal, meaning Lord, was also used to refer to various deities of the Levant. All right, and blah, blah, blah. But one of the things I remembered was that I had read about was that they did human sacrifices. Yep. And not only human sacrifices, they they liked to sacrifice children to Baal. Further on in that New World Encyclopedia says another issue is that of child sacrifice. The prophet Jeremiah indicates that infant sacrifice was offered to Baal as well as to other gods. However, it seems to be more prevalent with other days such as Moloch. Tomato. Okay. Uh, Let me see. It's in other words, I've heard, well, not heard, I've read in different sources that their sacrifice, human sacrifice, that. In other words, because sometimes you hear of, how can I say it, cities, religions, civilizations performing human sacrifice, but sometimes they only did it when something bad had happened. You know, pestilence, drought, something else where they were facing extinction, and then they would go the route of let's do a human sacrifice. But if I remember correctly, the Phoenicians, despite how great they were navigating on the sea, this was a normal thing of human sacrifice. My point being, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could look at it and say, well, don't be judgmental about it, but I wouldn't put up a statue of. Let me see if I can get this any bigger. Well, I don't know. This is kind of a statue. I don't know what that is of Baal. I don't know. I just, a deity that was known to like sacrifices, especially children. Mm, to me that's like wow. That's very and this right here for those of you also in the New World Encyclopedia, there's a part that says a demon Baal. Baal is sometimes seen as a demon in the Christian tradition. Early demonologists, unaware of Baal Hadad or that Baal could refer to any number of local spirits, came to regard the term as referring to one supremely evil personage. Baal was ranked as the first and principal king in hell, ruling over the East. During the English Puritan period, Ball was either equated with Satan or considered his main lieutenant. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Now, let's go on to something more modern. This is out of New York Post. My boyfriend found a dead body under my house while working on plumbing. I'm telling you. Okay, here it is. A man found a dead body underneath his girlfriend's home while doing some plumbing work. I bet he's never going to do anything else on that honey-do list. Oh, let's continue with this. Tracy Dowds of Pennsylvania thought a dead animal was causing the foul smell, as she could never have imagined it was a rotting corpse. This is, by the way, this is out of the Sun. She told KDKA that her boyfriend was fixing the plumbing of her mobile home on Thursday when he came across the skeletal remains. Recalling the ordeal, Dowd said, "He came out and he's like, 'Tracy, you're not going to believe this.' I'm like, 'What?' He's like, 'I think there's a dead body under there.' At first, Dowd thought her partner was joking until they unearthed the bones. The police were called and cops said the human remains were in an extreme state of decomposition. WPXI reports. The manner of the death hadn't been determined according to a state police report. Cops are trying to find out how long the body has been under the Ohioville home. They do not know when the person died and are unsure about the body's gender." And then Dowds admits that she has been left traumatized by the ordeal. She said, "We're a little traumatized, but it will be over soon. She has lived on the property for around 5 years with her daughter." Dowd said sleeping at the property has been weird since the remains were discovered. She said, "I'm no Nancy Drew, but I've been freaked out for a long time." Pennsylvania State Police are continuing to investigate as the probe remains ongoing. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. The only problem I have with this story is that they're saying that it smells, but she's been living there 5 years. Okay, if that body was underneath her house or the mobile home for 5 years or more, I would think that by then it would have been desiccated, what would be smelling? Which, if it's smelling now, leads me to believe that that body's there after she moved there, because otherwise, even stuff like that after 5 years, decomposition takes place, and basically you get skeletal remains. All the stuff that smells decays after 5 years. So I don't know, either somebody without me knowing crawled under my house and died. That thing about the smell in the 5 years or something there that doesn't add up. So anyway, let's go on to another one. This is out of Mysterious Universe. It's called The Strange Story of the Tombstone Pterodactyl. One area of cryptozoology is that of giant flying reptiles that have managed to remain elusive and unexplained. And one area where such things have been sighted is the American Southwest, with tales of dinosaurs, here going back to the frontier Wild West days of cowboys and Indians. Among some of the most talked about and famous of the dinosaurs of the West are the various large pterodactyl-type creatures said to have been sighted throughout the 1800s and beyond, and which were already known to the native people of the region as thunderbirds. One such account was reported from the town of Tombstone, Arizona, a historic boomtown most famous for its gunfight behind the OK Corral in 1881, and is pretty much everything one imagines when thinking of a dusty old West town out of a Western flick. Here there would unfold a rather bizarre tale of a mysterious winged reptile which has managed to capture the imagination to this day. Besides gunfights, cowboy saloons, and a once thriving silver industry, the town was also the location for one of the stranger and oft-discussed accounts of cryptozoology. The Tombstone epitaph on April 26, 1890, included a case of a rather curious encounter. The article details the fantastic account of some sort of huge winged creature which was found by two ranchers in the desert region between the Whetstone and Huachuca Mountains. The monstrous thing was said to look something like an alligator with an elongated tail and a set of massive bat-like wings. When it was found, the creature was allegedly exhausted and only capable of short bursts of light. The two curious ranchers then were said to have pursued this strange creature for several miles on horseback, as it took to the air to retreat in short, sporadic flights. occasionally getting within range to unleash upon it with their rifles and wounding it in the process. At one point, the injured monster apparently turned on the men in aggression and defiance, at which point they were able to shoot it dead. Afterwards, the ranchers claimed to have measured it and found the body to be roughly 92 feet in length, with 2 feet that were joined to the body just under massive wings that were awkwardly folded under the body. When the wings had been properly stretched out, they were said to be around 160 feet in diameter from tip to tip, and the enormous head of the beast was reported as measuring 8 feet long, with strong jaws filled with formidable sharp teeth and eyes the size of dinner plates. The wings were apparently covered by some sort of thin membrane, and the whole body covered with rather thin, almost translucent skin, without hair or feathers. The ranchers reportedly chopped off a portion of one of the creature's wings to take with them, after which they supposedly made arrangements to have the beast skinned and examined by scientists. It is unclear if that ever happened or not. The article simply ends on a note of excitement about what will be uncovered, but nothing is really known about what happened after this rather amazing story or what became of the alleged carcass. This account has drawn a fair amount of criticism, not only because of the sheer ludicrous size description of the thing, but also because it seems like a story tailor-made to bring in tourists and money to the town. At the time, the once prosperous Tombstone had fallen on hard times due to the flooding of several of the silver mines that were the town's lifeblood, and they were no doubt desperate to put their ailing town back on the map. So a sensational story of a fantastic giant flying dinosaur might have been one way to do it. The fact that such an amazing tale, which would have taken the scientific world by storm, was not mentioned in any of the other local newspapers, nor any apparent photograph taken of it, just makes the whole thing more suspicious. There was also the habit of papers at the time to generously exaggerate stories or make them up entirely. The bizarre story would not end there, and would indeed evolve into one of cryptozoology's great mysteries. In 1966, after decades of debate as to the authenticity of the story of the Tombstone Pterodactyl, a writer by the name of Jack Pearl claimed that there was indeed a photo of the tombstone creature, or at least one very much like it, which had been published in another article in the Tombstone Epitaph in 1886. The article allegedly said that a group of prospectors had carted the dead monster into town and pinned it to a barn wall for a photo. The picture apparently shows 6 men standing with arms outstretched before the winged beast, and its size estimated to be around 36 feet from wingtip to wingtip. The story of this photo's existence was corroborated by writer H.M. Cranmer in 1963 article in Fate magazine, and renowned cryptozoologist Ivan Sanderson claimed that he had actually owned a photocopy of the photo, but that it had been lost. From there, the legend of the new notorious Thunderbird photo really took off. People began to come out of the woodwork swearing they had seen the photo on TV, in books, or in magazines, but in every case no actual copy could ever be tracked down. The question of the elusive photo's existence became a popular topic within the realms of cryptozoology and Forteana, inciting heated debate and speculation, and the search for the lost photo became a sort of holy grail within the field. In-depth investigations into the claims of the photo being printed in the Tombstone Epitaph were carried out, yet looking back deeply into the newspaper's archives showed that no such picture was ever published, and there have been no follow-up articles. Others searched all editions of various books in which people had sworn they had seen the photo, but it turned out that no such photo had ever been published in any of them. Some people have sworn that the picture was most certainly in a particular book, only to find that the photo was gone when they looked there. Over the years, photos have been occasionally brought forward and claimed to be the supposed lost Thunderbird photo, but none of them seemed to be exactly what was described in the original or what people insisted they remembered seeing. So, what is going on here? How can so many people vividly and irresistibly remember seeing this photograph, so adamantly convinced that it is real, yet be totally unable to find a copy or any proof whatsoever of its actual existence? All kinds of theories have been thrown up, trying to explain how so many people could remember seeing a photo that seemed to not exist, ranging from the rational to the decidedly fringe. One idea is that it is a simple mass false memory or shared memory instigated and propagated through the power of suggestion, while more far-out ideas postulate time warps, time travelers, stealing the copies, or even preventing it from ever being taken, as well as the notion of the photo somehow erasing itself from reality. The lost Tombstone Thunderbird photograph and the story behind it remains a persistent and compelling mystery and subject of debate, and there are those who continue to doggedly search for it. Wow, I had heard of that. It's it's very interesting, all this crazy stuff that's going on, but there's always going to be more crazy to go around. So guys, uh, I hope you like this short little look into the unusual, and I will be seeing you tomorrow, the day after. Again, go to Eerie.news, Eerie.news for articles and links uh, to these video versions of it. Till next time, take care.